Jake, the offensive scheme that Kevin Stefanski runs, what can Browns fans expect to see? What kind of makes it go, and what chance does it have to be successful here with the personnel that the Browns have or might have?
Yeah, I think what you're going to see, if you can recall back in the 2014 season, they went 7-9 there. They had a pretty friendly scheme that saw, Terrence West and Isaiah Crowell run really well in an outside wide zone scheme, and that coupled play action with it very well with, the likes of Andrew Hawkins and Josh Gordon when he came back from suspension, and I think it was Jordan Cameron was still the tight end at that time, or Gary Barnett too. But it's a familiar scheme if you've been watching the Rams, if you've been watching the 49ers. There are different wrinkles, there are different things these guys do, but their base play is wide zone, and it's that stretch that they're trying to put on the perimeter. I wrote about this on the OBR if you get a chance to read it. It's out there for you, how they teach this scheme. Give the running back three options: either bounce it outside, bang it, right off of the tackle's block, pushing somebody outside, or you can bend it, cut it back to the backside. It's a really friendly running back scheme, and one that Nick Chubb's very good in. The Browns ran it plenty. They didn't make it their base play, and they didn't build off of it. That's the big thing you'll notice with Stefanski's offense, is that they build off of this play, naked bootlegs for the quarterback. Screen game comes from it, it looks like it. All of those sorts of little wrinkles. Stefanski often talk about marrying the run game and the pass game. That's a big thing that they try to do. He was a former defensive back, so he knows what it's what it's like when you don't know what's coming, whether run or pass, and they look the same, and the mistakes that can happen from that. So that's what you can expect. But you can expect still some gun stuff. You can expect still inside run, duo run. They play with the fullback a lot. They led the league in fullback lead blocking runs. They'll do that quite a bit, so the Browns will be in the market for a fullback, and they'll also use two tight ends quite often. So you'll see a heavier personnel package. They will be run focused and be friendly with how they block the run, and then hopefully, Baker Mayfield is able to build off of that and take some downfield shots to his wide receiver talent.
I think I also saw some of the stuff in the Orange and Brown report where they like to run on first and second down as well. Can you kind of speak to that and what you wrote on the Orange and Brown report regarding first and second down?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. You want to be able to keep teams on their toes and be able to create deception in early downs, and I think that's something that they wanted to do. Stefanski wanted to do, but I think Zimmer, the head coach there in Minnesota, is a defensive guy and likes and trusts his defense, and would kind of put the clamps on Stefanski sometimes being hyper aggressive. So you would see a lot of first and second, even second and long runs. I'll be interested to see if that trend keeps up in Cleveland. I'm not sure he'll do that, but I do think there will be a healthy commit to the run early and often as they try to establish. Because if you can establish the scheme, it is just really tough to defend. You don't have to run the ball successfully to have play action success, but it certainly, in my opinion, helps more than it hurts. And I think if you can get Nick Chubb going, get Kareem Hunt going, if he's still a part of things next year, it has a lot of benefits, and you'll see an offense that's really, performing at a really high level. Because when you think back on that Shanahan scheme stuff and where they were in 2014, they were doing that with very marginal quarterback talent and nobody near the talent of those two running backs they have. So they have to get a couple tackles. They have to figure out those two positions. But the thing that's nice is this scheme is very offensive lineman friendly. If you look at Pro Football Focus's grades on run blocking grades, the Browns and pass blocking grades, the Browns actually graded out higher individually, but they did not run as collectively well or pass as collectively well as Cleveland did. So, you're looking at a scheme that can help the offensive line, and that's really important because you're going to probably be starting some young guys up there.
The other thing is it would seem that the Browns, the talent, if you will, the skill position guys, receivers, running backs, would appear to be significant upgrades over both Minnesota and what the Browns had under Shanahan. If you remember, wide receivers were small that they had and not they were kind of towards the lower end of NFL average guys.
Yeah, they had Miles Austin back then. It was a little weird. They're waiting on Josh Gordon to get back. Josh got back and helped, obviously, because he was young and in his prime freakish days there. But, yeah, they weren't loaded with wide receiver talent. Now, Minnesota obviously has two very good ones, in Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs. But if you recall, Adam Thielen dealt with an injury in the middle of the year that kept him out of quite a few games. And then after that, they don't really have any significant wide receiver talent, much like prefer, even though the third wide receiver won't play a ton for Cleveland, that they're able to go out and get another one to be able to supplement any injuries that could happen. So, but you're right. The point of your question there is right, that they will have better talent. This might be the most skilled talent that Stefanski has had in an offense, in the past few years. But the Vikings had two very good tight ends, in my opinion, last year. Irv Smith and Kyle Rudolph were very willing blockers. The Browns are going to have to figure that out. And they're also going to have to figure out, a fullback that can handle some duties as well. And there are names out there like C.J. Ham, who's with Minnesota last year and is a restricted free agent. Kyle Juszczyk has, the mentor kid who, Harvard grad, started with Baltimore, now is really thriving again. San Francisco has a big option coming up for about $6.3 million, so he'll be on the market as well. Maybe if San Francisco decides to decline that if money gets tight. So it should be a fun market, though. Derek Watt is also out there too. So some names that can be had.
Would you expect the line get upgraded significantly just because they do want to be able to run the ball effectively, or does this scheme is that what you're getting at? This scheme kind of understands, okay, this guy doesn't do this, so we don't ask him to do that.
Yeah, I think the scheme will help. I certainly can help if it's taught the right way, and if James Campen is back, I think he'll do a fine job with it. I don't particularly expect them to replace any of their inner three. I think they'll keep Wyatt Teller. Obviously, they're going to have their two veterans at center and left guard and Treader, but they're going to probably draft a young tackle. They might even draft two young tackles and keep Kendall Lamb on the roster too, to be that swing player who could start off the year, and we'll see where it goes. But in my opinion, it'll be two different tackles, and it'll be a challenge. It'll be a challenge to get those guys amped up and ready to go. But there are guys like Tristan Wirfs out of Iowa who played in this scheme, similar zone scheme, who can fit right in. So it'll be quite fascinating to see which guy they end up taking there at 10.